One concept I want to introduce is around boundaries. So let's get super clear about what a boundary is. Boundaries are like invisible lines between where you end and someone else begins. They define what you will and won't tolerate, not to punish the other person, but to protect your own well-being. Think of it like a personal property line. If you don't mark it clearly, people will walk all over your yard without even realizing it. Especially in relationships with avoidant partners, clear boundaries are how you stay connected to yourself without getting lost in their distance. Without boundaries, you'll start shrinking yourself to keep the peace, overgiving to close the distance gap, or silencing your needs just to avoid triggering their withdrawal. And that's how people lose themselves. Boundaries keep you anchored. They remind you, I exist, I matter, my needs are valid. Boundaries are one of the most powerful ways to look after yourself. They're acts of self-respect, not selfishness. When you set a boundary, you're saying, my well-being matters, my needs count. And that is very important. And it also creates attraction. We're attracted to people who respect themselves. So boundaries don't just protect you, they project confidence. They also set standards for yourself. Every time you hold a boundary, you're reinforcing your self-worth. You're saying, I don't abandon myself to be loved. Boundaries are what protect your time, energy, and ultimately your identity. If you don't set boundaries, attraction fades. Because genuinely, we are truly attracted to people, at least in a meaningful way, more than surface level, who we respect. Respect is a foundational principle of attraction. Boundaries are also how we avoid resentment. I see this with clients a lot. They say yes when they mean no. They tolerate things that quietly hurt them. They push their needs down to keep the relationship afloat. At first, it might feel like love, but over time, it turns into resentment, and that can become toxic. Another thing about boundaries is that if you don't express your boundaries, you're being inauthentic. You're showing up as a version of yourself who hides their truth. And that's not real connection, that's performance. So when you stay silent to avoid discomfort or rejection, you're not giving the other person the chance to know the real you. And if they don't know who the real you is, what exactly are you building? A relationship rooted in self-abandonment is just a slow breakup in disguise. And the thing is, it's up to you to clearly state your boundaries. You are the only person who knows them in a detailed way. And yes, there are some things like cheating, for example, that is a kind of universal boundary in relationships. But smaller or less obvious boundaries, if you don't voice them, you can't expect someone else to guess. No one is a mind reader. So it's important to speak up. But I will say how you state your boundaries matters a lot with an avoidant. So use the communication tips I've shared. A quick heads up, if you're anxiously attached, this next part is for you. If you constantly overthink, spiral, second guess yourself, we've got something that can help. It's called the Self-Trust Blueprint. It's our 3-step framework to go from anxious to secure in life and love without years of therapy or guesswork. And we're giving it away for free, for a limited time. And honestly, I'm super, super passionate about it because I've seen it change so many lives. It's the exact framework I used myself to become securely attached, and my life is so much better for it. We've helped over 5,000 people find love through So Synced. Our work has been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, the New York Times, and many more. And we've spent years refining the exact tools you'll find inside this blueprint. So if you're ready to go from spiraling to secure, sign up via the link in the description box to get it while it's still available. With relationships, it's often about meeting in the middle. You need to clearly state where you are, and also you need to understand where your partner is, so you can find that point in between that works for both of you. If you both don't know where each other truly stands, you'll be scrambling around in the dark. Now I want to discuss the concept of core boundaries and preference boundaries. And these aren't known terms, these are terms that I've come up with. But they're incredibly helpful for navigating relationships, especially with avoidant partners. So core boundaries are your non-negotiables, the things that you need to feel truly secure, respected, and aligned in a relationship. They protect your sense of self. Preference boundaries, on the other hand, are things that you'd like. They make you feel a bit more comfortable or a bit more secure, but they're not deal breakers. And you can flex on those a little bit without losing yourself, as long as your core boundaries are being met. Because the reality is, in healthy relationships, we do sometimes have to compromise, and vice versa with the other person. Now, here's the nuance. You won't necessarily always feel 100% secure in a relationship, even a good one. Disagreements happen, insecurities come up, but your core boundaries exist to protect you from chronic emotional instability. It's not about occasional discomfort. The difference is this: feeling emotionally off balance sometimes is natural. Feeling emotionally unsafe consistently is a sign that your core boundaries are being crossed. So this is a concept to bear in mind, particularly when you're dating an avoidant. You don't want your core boundaries to be crossed. So let's take a look at some examples of core boundaries versus preference boundaries. And the preference boundaries are different for everyone. So bear in mind that these are examples. Here are some examples of core boundaries. If you pull away, please let me know what's going on instead of disappearing. When we have serious conversations, I'd like to know that we will revisit them if we don't find a solution the first time. I need to be able to express my feelings without being punished or shut down. And here are some examples of preference boundaries. I'd like us to check in once a day, even briefly when we're apart. When we have conflict, I prefer that we don't go to bed without some kind of resolution or reassurance. It would help me feel more grounded if I knew what our plans were for the weekend by Friday. Core boundaries protect your sense of self, while preference boundaries add to your comfort. And boundaries do differ from person to person, but some core boundaries are universal. So let's compare and contrast. Needing to be able to express your feelings without being shut down. That's a core boundary. If it's consistently violated, the relationship becomes emotionally damaging. Now I'd like us to check in once a day, even briefly, when we're apart. That's a preference boundary. It supports connection, but if it doesn't happen all the time, it's probably not a deal breaker. And yes, your core boundaries are the ones that you really don't want to bend on. They protect your emotional safety and your self-worth.